Да, добрый день. Я приветствую.
Good morning. I'm welcoming you in Sochi for the International Investment Forum Sochi 2016. This is one of the opening sessions. The weather outside is dusky. It is not so sunny, and it will improve as we go on. And it will get sunnier as we go along our today's event. As we are a bit late with our today's session, maybe we have a candidate for presidency in our audience. I am Dmitry Butrin, Deputy Chief Editor-in-Chief of the Kommersant Publishing House, who will talk about the export potential of regions. Our session will be dedicated to supporting the export and the tools dedicated to it, and we have a lot of participants. We have a very tight agenda. I will not be able to provide anyone more than 5 minutes, and I will not use my own 5 minutes that I have in the beginning and at the end of the session, and I will use them for other purposes. Why is the Sochi Forum taking place every September, late September every year? Every June, our government is making plans for the time period until the end of the year, and it all seems very clear until some decisions are being made in September, which change the whole concept of development. And Sochi is a very good place to find out what has changed, and if anything has changed. The situation with the infrastructure in support of export has changed in September, as far as I understand, quite the other day. And we know that all the regions have been supporting exports for more than 1 or 2 years. I know some regions who have been supporting export for 25 years with mixed success, and it's quite natural that this state and the government has never regulated anything of that kind, and we will keep working with potential exporters. And I would ask people from the government to take 30 seconds to share with us if anything has changed within the recent weeks. And I would start with Denis Manturov and ask him to tell what's changed within recent weeks in this sphere. Dmitry, thank you for the invitation to take part in this panel discussion, but within 30 seconds will not be enough for me to share my point. Within 30 seconds, I can only say yes or no. Within this week, nothing has changed really, but a lot will change afterwards. If you give me some more time, I will be prepared to say something in more detail. Well, do you suggest that any regional standard of export support will be created? You know, before we go on to talk about the export potential of regions, which is the title and the theme of our panel, and we have to talk about the industrial potential, and not only industrial potential, we are talking about exports as a whole, and the industrial products and services related to industry. And in combination, we should look at every region and see what needs to be created, what could be subsequently sold. And initially, I would put the question like this. we should create, how should we create potential and promote it outwards. You will have time to talk about this, Alexei Likhachev, the Ministry of Economy. Have you had something within recent weeks? Any recent news within recent weeks? Maybe you know something that I don't know of. Well, quite brief. Something has changed, and I think that it's the first time when the government talked about the distribution of responsibilities for supporting the export. There are particular projects, particular products which have to be sold, which have to be fine-tuned and serviced. And there is some environment which contributes to all this process. Legal basis and some institutions, and there are regions which manufacture the products which start their long way there. I don't subscribe to the idea of the regional standard. We have to work with the regions, and the governors will, of course, mention this. Let me just take 10 seconds to illustrate my point. Many of my colleagues know of a certain regional competition standard which was adopted last year. Some results were published, and frankly speaking, we were quite disappointed because it's not a standard of a competitive environment, but a standard of the actions of the government and the governors. We evaluate the quality of activities and their results. So we should be very careful with the KPIs of the governors, and we should take into account the exports and all the different legal and statistical aspects. Thank you. The Russian Expert Center, Petr Fratkov. Your news within the recent weeks. Have you had any? Well, my news and our news all lie in the same domain of information as those of my colleagues, and we work together with them, and we we work under all the programs. We work together, and it's been a very important benchmark. And the initiative, which was voiced some time ago, aimed at the creation of a Russian export center as a single contact point, it has found its own niche, and it's not a certain task which we have to resolve, and we have to contribute to the solutions of governors in the regions. It's quite a clear program for an export-oriented economy, and it will be important for us to know that we'll work not in vain for a certain result, and we understand a certain image, we have a certain image of the final result. This is quite brief, and I think that everyone's understood that we have some changes. We've had some changes, but no one wants to share them. Maxim Akimov will probably want to share something about this. The first deputy of the chief director of the government's apparatus. We're going to give you like 5 minutes or something more. Well, this is a great budget. This is a great budget, and I'm very happy to see that we have such a representative and nice audience. We will compete with the sessions on how to get a budgetary loan extraordinarily without any planning. So this is a very good sign. It may be that it is caused by very tight conditions of our life and the forecasts which we are based on, and which will be based on while we are composing the budget for the next 3 years. The situation in the world trade is not so optimistic as it was several years ago. Nevertheless, we can say that export is quite crucial for us. It's a powerful source of demand for national manufacturers, for domestic manufacturers. And the first thing that has to be understood is that it is the mission of the RADS, which we have been engaged with for the past several years, is to implement the understanding that beyond the customs borders, there's nothing ominous and nothing dangerous outside or beyond the borders of the Russian Federation. If the manufacturers have been surviving in the Russian Federation, they can also survive in deep waters of the world market. There's a lot we have to learn. There's a lot we have to adjust yet. And one of those things that need to be adjusted is logistics. And we have a feeling that there is a big gap in that sphere. If we have certain issues with logistics, with commodities supplies, with some kinds of products, and we're not ready to present a coherent product. And one of the ideas that we have today, that we're discussing today, is that if we have to subsidize those products in the midterm perspective, if we're not able to send a small batch instead of 10 or 20 tons, we can't offer a competitive price. Then the market is closed for you. The next option is Russia's representation, Russia's presence on electronic platforms. If you look at the Italian or a French pavilion on Alibaba, you will see that global brands are present there, like quasi-Italian brands, and some domestic manufacturers which are almost unheard of, and which enter this market, which is one of the biggest in the world. And this is what we would like to create as conditions for our domestic manufacturers. From the point of view of getting onto that platform and evaluation of the market potential. And let me just get back to this topic once again. Door-to-door delivery or offline retail procurement, or offline retail supplies, which should be automated. Then another issue would be Russia's branding as the country of origin. There are colleagues who have invested a lot more effort than yours truly. They can share more information with you, but let me say it once again. One of our key tasks is to find the companies which do not yet feel the potential they have. These are the companies that are involved with the segment, the middle segment. Well, as for the RADs, we would like to make them confident and aware of the fact that if they supply good products, then they won't have any problems with customs clearance, the registration of rights, or any other aspects of entering international markets. And up to a certain limit, the state, represented by RADs, will tackle these problems. And the export potential of the regions is important, because we don't have any other potential, because our country consists of regions, is comprised by regions, and we are to have a lot of success in this on this way, and there is a huge market of the Asia Pacific region. That's where the big new middle class is growing. If we position ourselves along the niches of certain goods, we hardly can compete in electronics, and that's not what we would want to do. But there are some other niches or segments which will be closed for us. But we can make a breakthrough in this market with Russian products and Russian brands. That is for sure. That's all I would like to share with you. Thank you. Thank you. And during our session, we will have a chance to ask questions very briefly. And in half an hour, well, we don't have any standard of supporting the exports, but the single institution will be created, is being created already. Let's talk about the principle of one-stop shop will be put into place. Well, you can have 86 different contact points, but they're difficult to manage at the scale of the whole country. And when the Russian center was being created, we understood that we had to work with the regions. We had to contact regional authorities, and the export priorities that we formulated for ourselves, the goals which we set for ourselves, the prioritization along different industries in different regions, CIS, Asia Pacific. But I think that in the regions we will have to have a goals map, a roadmap of goals for our activities, because several years ago there were very few regions which took export as seriously as a topic. These were industrial regions, historically industrial regions, but now we see that the regions become involved in that work, in that process, and we're trying to form this matrix competence and create such an environment. Why should we mix the brands if we have if we have some local brands, and Tula region, Vladimir region have their own brands which are renowned in different countries. What's also important is the industrial specialization, and we can compete with our international competitors and rivals if we have something that we're quite strong in, and which can help us conquer international markets. We have tried different ways, and on one hand, we started to form our own structures which report to us and which help us use non-budgetary sources for funding the exporters. And we have about 14 pilot regions, like the Vladimir region, the Tula region. We will sign such agreements with the Vologda region, with the Leningrad region. And these are not framework agreements, but there are quite specialized plans of action. And this will help them maintain some export activities. But if I may mention this, we have started to go along a way which is quite important for us. The regional ministries of industry and trade, we jointly with them we create issue export licenses. We have a list of regions, of pilot regions for these institutions in Khabarovsk and Rostov-on-Don. We will soon have Nizhny Novgorod and Voronezh and other regions to join us. And there are also educational projects in order to get some other stakeholders involved. People have to become exporters. That's one of the trickiest tasks. They have to understand what export is about and what needs to be done to become an exporter, to form their own business plans based on certain external markets. And we have prepared such an educational project in the pilot 13 regions. And within several months, we have trained about 500 people from the infrastructure of those regions. We have more than 1,400 people in absentia training, and we will get 33 more regions involved in the future. And what we're seeing, the export volumes are falling, due to certain conjuncture phenomena, but there are some other some other exports that are rising. For example, agricultural products and food exports. And here we're not only talking about traditional agricultural regions, but also certain regions which have always been famous for their machinery products, like the Tula region. The Tula region was number 2 in exports in 2015. Now it's number 20. Now it's in place 20. And the machinery products that the region is quite famous for is accountable for the growth of exports. And this change in cliches is quite an important trend. The companies which have never worked with the exports start to dominate, and this is one of the important activities of the export center in terms of financial support together with our colleagues from the ministry. Thank you.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you, Mr. Fratkov. Thank you very much indeed. Let me draw your attention, dear panelists, that we are talking about some standard issues. However, being a historian from my background, let me remind you that we're talking here about how to improve and develop the potential, the capabilities that we can find out there in regions. After the Second World War, in Italy, nobody could even dream that 7 years later, Italy would become a standard setter in terms of industrial design, right? So same goes for South Korea. Nobody knew that that country would turn into a large shipbuilding and metal producing country, economy, and nobody even could predict that South Korea would export ships and metal in large amounts. Same goes for like Germany. Nobody could even predict for Germany to become one of the leading automobile exporting economies. So, Mr. Matrov, I would like to now turn to you. What are our expectations during the last 50 years? The Ministry of Industry and Commerce says that we need to work in a more systematic fashion instead of changing something. Thank you for citing the example of South Korea. But some believe that that was a success story, a positive example. However, there are some observers who believe that there were some serious disadvantages to the South Korean model. As you know, 3 shipbuilding wharfs have gone bankrupt in South Korea within the last couple of years. years, because there's a lot of production going on in the world. China is expanding considerably into this market. I mean, the shipbuilding market. Same goes for Japan as well. In fact, the thing is that it's not like selling and forgetting, right? This model doesn't work anymore, and this is all about added value, right? What is important is that if you look at world trends, and then I go back to Russia, so onto the world, what is important is to keep a close eye on all of these trends, the way they evolve, without having to create overproduction of certain goods that will not be in demand anymore. This is what is happening now on the market of fertilizers, mineral fertilizers, for example. Like if we look at nitrogen fertilizers, they have been shrinking over the last 10 years considerably. So the thing is that the world population has been growing, of course, right? And demand for foodstuffs have been growing. But we need to change the cliche, like somebody said. We need to change our perception of these trends. It doesn't mean that this demand is going to grow and more plants are being put into operation, which is wrong. Instead of producing fertilizers in the landmass, it makes much more sense to produce fertilizers close to port terminals, right? So with bringing all the logistics costs down to a minimum. Whereas in Russia, for example, our fertilizers are produced a long way from terminals, which doesn't make much sense to produce fertilizers here. Although what helps, though, is our pipelines. Yes, but anyway, what is important to do is to coordinate our tools of our industrial policy, and this is what we've been involved lately quite extensively when we came to realize that every region has a certain desire of how to develop their own automobile sector, which again doesn't make sense. Demand is not that large physically. But every region is dreaming of developing an automotive cluster of their own, or like steel making. Factories of region wants to. So I just remember talking to one governor of one of the regions, and he told me, "Hey, I'm sleeping with this idea of, I'm playing with this idea of producing metal. And where do you get raw materials?" I asked him. He goes, "Well, my neighbor has a lot of raw materials, but yeah, but why don't your neighbors produce metal instead of just transporting the whole thing at long distance?" So. This is my point. We need to make sure that we specialize and that we coordinate our efforts without duplicating our efforts in terms of our industrial policy, right? So that we can better understand what regions actually shape what kind of competency and core competency. We need to strengthen that competency, trying to promote it to our outer perimeter, so to say, through the use of what tools? This is another question. Right. Number one, if we talk about the need for us to develop competitive options, products, right? So we need to capitalize on our industrial parks. At the federal level and at the regional level, we come to realize that we need to capitalize on specialization. These new generation of industrial parks are now being built at the expense of federal funds, so that we can make up for the losses incurred by regions and help them develop their infrastructures, thus making their life easier. Thus, like I said, promoting the development of the core competencies that I have been talking about. Number two, 9 regions already have set up their own funds for development of industry. Like, for example, present here is Mr. Alexei Dyomin of Kaluga. Also Mr. Mitrevich here represents Yaroslav Oblast. Also, they are running a similar project, and some other regions are following suit, so that we can actually develop export-oriented products through the use of our specialization. Now, back to what our moderator asked me at the very beginning of his talk, what is happening and what our expectations should be, well, with regard to supporting our export-oriented industries. So, like I said, we need to get rid of simple solutions right? Trying to find just a buyer out there and build and deliver our goods. This is not gonna work anymore. We need to change our cliches. We need to start building industrial zones not only within our country, but also perhaps on the territory of other countries as well, through the use of such core competencies. And there we're running a pilot project right now with Egypt, particularly, and so a large plot of land has been made available to us next to the port of Said, to the east of that port, on the border with the Suez Canal. So the idea is for us to keep the logistics costs as low as possible, right? This is where we can produce something, and actually we look at Egypt as a regional hub, and such regional hubs should be added to this network of hubs, right? And our industries, our enterprises should operate there. Our Chinese colleagues are using the same model, and what they do, instead of producing products in China, what happens is that they chunk their enterprises outside, trying to help them assimilate with the local environment, meeting the local standards, and our function as a government. As a matter of fact, this is what we enshrined in our launch on our project that we considered last week with the Prime Minister of Russia. So with regard to such a specialization and building on our core competencies, this is not just promoting some preferential terms for loan taking. This is something good. We are working still on with our central bank, but at the same time, emphasis is going to be put on this multi-faceted and sophisticated way to promote our products through the use of such industrial zones, jointly operated, by the way. Let me give an example, which is as a Eurasian Economic Union, we and Vietnam actually signed an agreement on free trade zones, following, in light of a couple of objectives. Number one, to help our enterprises promote their products in that region. And by the way, Alexei was present there at those negotiations, and our Vietnamese and Ms. Galina Legun as well. So anyway, I remember talking to this Vietnamese gentleman. He said, why you guys trying to promote Renault's interests? The thing is that Renault decided to use our plants in Moscow, localizing 100% production of Renault Duster and with the following modifications as well, so that these new models of Renault could be produced in Moscow and shipped to Vietnam, which is a normal thing. Like I said, building on such core competencies, we are building conglomerates of industrial parks jointly with a number of other economies and global players in the market. One more thing should be added. What is important is, of course, being aware of our business missions. We meet on a regular basis with our colleagues, like ministers, my counterparts of industry and trade and industry and commerce of other countries. At the federal level, this results in the signing of some agreements aimed at stimulating such tools. But also what is important is to develop our inter-regional connections. I remember listening to representatives of Indian states. We're talking about millions of people who live in the individual states within India, right? And the idea was to organize a series of events in individual states of India. At the regional level, the thing is that our governors should establish their contacts with their counterparts in India, not at the federal level, but on a regional level, right? So that they can set up and run joint ventures. And the Indian business actually is also interested in coming to Russia. This is a pretty sophisticated tool that we are planning on implementing in future. I'm running out of my time, as I understand, but just once on this subject, because I'm sure you won't give me any more opportunities. Let me conclude now, and I think that everybody should be interested in this. Now, We are launching an initiative at the federal level now to make emphasis on four main lines of work. Number one, automobile, transmash, agricultural machine building, and civil aviation, including passenger airlines. Without excluding other branches such as energy, power, and so forth, but those four lines of work, they're much more tangible, measurable, quantifiable, right? And again, enable us to build on our core competencies here in Russia so that we can develop our export potential and capabilities. So this brings me to an end of my short brief. I know that this is something that can be discussed during a long time. So yeah, thank you very much as a moderator. So those four lines of business are very important indeed. They should be crucial. And in part, you already mentioned what, right, we all actually overlap here. So and my other question is overlapping with what you said. That, no, everybody work for our country, not for our branches. Yes, and Alexei Dmitrievich also is making his contribution. Okay, moderator goes, to tap on our potential requires a lot of administrative also efforts, right? And we need to be aware of our cultural idiosyncrasies, like take fashion, mode. Back in the, as a matter of fact, there was this brand for Russian goods back in the 1800s, for example, right? They were in fashion, they were in vogue, they were much in Europe and Japan, right? And whether or not the government has been looking at this aspect, so as a matter of inspiration, well, it's a kind of a philosophical issue, right? I understand that fashion is not something designed by governments, but rather by public, by consumers, by producers and users, right? But I agree with the Minister Manturov, who actually already said something to the fact that we need to put ashes on our heads and then and feel sorry for our disadvantages and being jealous of other nations. This is a wrong approach. Look at the 1990s. Remember, there was, foodstuffs were in short supply, and we were lining up in long lines, long queues to get canned meat imported from China. But 10, 15, 20 years later, what happens is that Russia is a major exporter of foodstuffs to China, right? So the whole thing has changed. The cliché has been blown up, in fact. And the world economies are changing, and population of northern China, for example, bordering with Russia, they treat Russia as the same way as we Russians treat it. Like, for example, France is the mecca of cuisine, right, of culinary art back in the 90s, for example. Same goes for the automobile industries, or ABBY, for example, in artificial intellect. Is now something that is designed by ABBY company, and this is also very in both amongst consumers and governments. Back to your question, we're dealing here with a very fine environment of how regional governments and economies and businesses interact with federal agencies in terms of export, and we're here to talk about how to tap on this capabilities. We need to make available a whole set of tools to our regional governments and businesses for them to be able to actually capitalize on them, instead of like having their envoys coming to Russia and knock on all those doors and ask for support. And this is what our minister has just said. Indeed, we need to set up those one-stop shops so that businesses can come and actually have their issues solved in an expeditious fashion. But instead of them coming here, why don't we just make all those tools available to them at the regional level. Export of goods is important for us to increase our competitiveness, and of course, this is all about competition in terms of not only quality, but also it's about financial offer that is part of this business. Like, for example, we'll lose on our bidding processes because like, for example, loans are granted at preferential terms at 0%, for example, for like 20 years. And what we do is we increase the interest rate, and doesn't, and at the end of the day, no investments make sense. So, so it is important for the regions to understand how complicated this mechanism of financial support is, so that they can partake of this, and also every ruble invested in support of exports should be thought of and agreed upon with regional governments. And the last thing I would like to draw attention to: the regions are very, I mean, economies vary from region to region, and their need for support also varies from region to region. But present here are a couple of governors here, and they present industrial-oriented governors, and they actually, of course, are part of our federal agenda for export development. And we have an interagency commission where all of the governors are represented, and all of the regions are represented adequately. And we work on a bilateral, multilateral basis. And next time we're going to meet in Kazakhstan next week, actually. So at all those venues, governors are represented, and all over 40-something interregional commissions work in Russia, following an interregional and export-oriented agenda. As a matter of fact, this is very high on top of our agenda. This should be part of regional policies as well. Thank you. Well, in conclusion, says the moderator, I mean, in concluding this first block of issues, let me tell you that we are all, of course, patriots and nationalists at the same time, because we're interested in what is being done in Tula, what is being done in Vladimir, what is being done at the federal level in Russia as well, right? There's something that is temporary, because made in Russia, right? Made in Russia is signs are going to be replaced in future by the new sign, made in Eurasian Economic Union, right? Without specifying where exactly this product has been made. Let's see what's going to happen within the European Union. Veronika Nikishina, Minister of Eurasian Union, for her to develop on this issue, what is going to happen in the future. So made in Russia is going to be changed by made in the European Union, right? Thank you, Dmitry.
Thank you, Dmitry. In all the previous speeches, it has been mentioned repeatedly that we are living in the times of cliches, and I would like to draw your attention to one probably unexpected tool of export as support of trade. Let's look at the trade regime which we're using, and we will have to reject that stereotype. We're used to the fact that the most important thing is the efficient customs tariff, and this is quite. We know that it is quite important to use this to protect our own market. But let's look around what's going on around us. The market is about 5%. So what? And we are regionalizing quite fast. And within the 20 years, the recent 20 years, there's been a network of free trade agreements which do not only deal with the abolition of customs, but the companies can now trade with each other in a more competitive mode. And there is a barrier in import fees that have to be overcome. It's not 5%, but it's 20 or 30%. And the income barrier is quite big, and the interest fee is not subsidized, and this is done without any this cannot be done without any systemic change. Some people from Chile came to us to conclude a trade agreement, and their structure is similar to the Russian structure, and they have some stock exchange goods, and within the 20 years we have entered 24 different agreements, and they have 97% of their exports with the countries with whom they have free trade agreements. So they have drastically changed conditions for non commodity goods, and we have 50% commodities, 50% non-commodities, and commodity goods do not have any entrance fees, no customs fees. And if we are to develop our non-commodity industry, we can overcome the customs barrier, and we are discussing this quite actively, and we would like to focus not only on reducing customs fees but also liberalization of tariffs. And there are other barriers which pose a more serious obstacles than the customs fees. We are willing to draw your attention to the fact that we can reject the stereotype that the free trade agreements are destructive for us. If we are to create any export drivers, we would like to think about bilateral cancellation or abolition of customs fees. No one's saying that we have to cancel customs fees for every country, but we'll have to think about our integration roadmap, and we have to formulate our export interests, and do so not by modeling. We have models which help us weigh all the pluses and minuses of free trade, and we are not a spaceship which is flying somewhere in the space. We're a platform which invites particular exporters so that we can discuss what goods we have, what markets we have for those goods, and formulate our own integration map. What goods we need on what conditions, and then we can answer the questions of what we should pay in response. And whatever we're paying with has very strong triggers. There are trigger tools which help us reinstate the tariffs if the import is going beyond certain dangerous levels. We would like to use the preferential regime quite seriously as tools of supporting the export. The investments are coming to the markets that are protected by customs fees is not true, because the more free trade agreements the country has, the more investors are attracted to it. It becomes a regional hub, which Mr. Manturov has mentioned, and the investments can be sold not only in this market, which has some limitations to its capacity, but we can also enter the markets of the countries with which this country has certain beneficial regimes. We have such an agreement with Vietnam, and we have rehearsed piloted this construction, this structure with Vietnam in terms of the Renault company, which would enter the Vietnamese market via the Russian market. And secondly, we tried to make the first approach by using Vietnam while investing into the manufacturing, export via the ASEAN market, which can hardly be entered into by other players. We have a portfolio of the countries like Israel, like Korea, like Egypt, like Singapore, like India, Iran. These are the countries where the import and export agenda, we invite all those countries for dialogue. And we invite the stakeholders to dialogue in terms of our integration map, so that we don't miss the window of opportunities which is formed around us in terms of regionalization, but we would become part of it very consciously. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are done with the federal part. Are there any questions to the federal ministers? Please. We don't have a mic, so please talk louder. Yeah, we have a microphone. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. Kaluga region, my first question goes to Mr. Fratkov. If we're talking to one-stop shop, what's the role of the chambers of trade and commerce which work with the exporters? Oh, you don't have a chance for a second question. No, no. Your question was like this. Please get it answered. Well, all our model means that we work with some exporters by creating one-stop shop. And as we work jointly with the regions, in our mini centers, these organizations and institutions, like small ones, they are non-commercial partnerships, non-commercial organizations. And apart from us and the regions, regional chambers of trade and commerce can be participants to those organizations. The entry is free and non-formally. Informally, we're expecting some business events, some missionary activities, if you want. We will get them involved in export activities, both formally and informally. All the tools can be used by us, and partly they're already used by us. Yuri Vysotsky from Vologda Textiles. I would like to thank the Ministry of Industry and Trade and the administration to the Vologda regional administration for helping out our company. Please, your question. So what's export is the competitive products which are supplied to other markets, for our market and for the export. Of course, new technologies are needed for that. We need partnerships. So we're discussing partnerships with different international companies, and what we see. You don't want to ask a question. My question is about. Well, I have a suggestion. I think that we could create a work group with the companies which manufacture export products with the help of international partnerships, state contracts for a certain term, some benefits for international companies and players. In today's context, we need some new mechanisms, and I would like to ask about the attitude of the distinguished panelists to work with the exporters within such a work group. Are you interested in creating such a work group? Yes, I would answer briefly. We're always open for dialogue, and we're always open to suggestions that you have already voiced. And some of those tools have been implemented, and you can already use them. And you have mentioned it already. You have said some words of thanks. You can come more often, and we will be able to share all those tools with you, and they will be created with your assistance, with your help. Well, dear colleagues, I can't allow for any more questions because every question is turning into a whole speech, and other speakers will be deprived of some of their rights. So let's move on from the theory to regional practices. We have the leaders of the most interesting regional leaders. The Tula region was the first Russian region which entered the world market despite not being a border region, or it was in the 16th or 17th region. You're a newcomer in politics, so a newcomer in your region. How would you describe your region? How is it different from what you expected before you took the position of the governor? Thank you for the question, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Before I entered that position, I had never thought about that. I started thinking about this when I was appointed on to this position. Let me be brief and let me be frank. Within the recent months, the federal policies of supporting export companies have been actualized, and we see some certain export potential for mid-range and big companies. The Tula region is showing some very positive dynamics in terms of many factors, and this corresponds with the export-oriented economy, and the export is 4 times as much as the import. It's $2.7 billion US. The Tula region exports are dominated by the goods and of chemical companies, chemical enterprises, chemistry, then metal and metallic structures and hardware, and on place 3 is the agricultural products and foodstuffs. And it's an open secret that the center of the military technologies is concentrated in Tula, and about 20%. Am I right, Mr. Manturov? And this is classified information, and we only can figure how big share this goes abroad, is exported. There are many companies in the region which have a huge export potential which hasn't been yet uncovered, and the government of the Tula region has something to do with this. As for some reasons we are not paying enough attention to those companies, we're not shown them that their products can be interesting, can be in demand. We have signed a cooperation agreement with the Russian Export Center. Why do we need this? It has been repeatedly said that we need one-stop shops, which are necessary for consultations, for educational programs, for other support measures, and the Tula region wants and aspires to have some pilot projects, all pilot projects, and those new things which are being created in the center be approved here, and we could be one of the first regions where the regional export center will be piloted. And Mr. Fratkov, you are next to us, we are next to you. Please don't forget the Tula region, please. From our viewpoint, it's important to provide information for the companies. That's a fact, and it doesn't only affect our region and as well as our neighbors. In May in Tula, the St. Petersburg Forum had a session in Tula where we discussed the growth of the Tula region, and new programs were presented as to the support of the regions, and about 15 or 20 companies came to us with their projects, and we started to scrutinize them with our colleagues, and the projects turned out to be, let's say, a bit raw, a bit incorrect, but the impetus was given, and our task was to convert this potential into real life products and projects. This agenda is not quite new for us. We've done a lot on our part for that purpose, and in the Tula region there is a regional integrated center which helps mid-size and large companies to prepare informational materials and handouts for our international partners, as well as conducting business missions. Within the recent time, we have held a lot of different events at a very high level. About 45 business missions jointly with our international partners, who are interested in the products which we manufacture, and about 10 to 15 companies from the Tula region who would never think that there would be any interest in their products. They have started to trade with countries as diverse as China, South Africa, and Sweden. Now we're trying to strike agreements with Vietnam, and the products include different meat products, plastic products, different bath appliances, and we are willing to give these opportunities to a wide variety of different partners, and we see our potential, our resources, and we think that the regions will not be able to handle this on their own. So we will create the regional center, export centers, and first and foremost, this deals with our contractors, and we also will increase the competence and expertise of our exporters, and we will increase the different supplies to other countries. And so the agenda includes one item: what's the role of exporters? So the creation of different conditions for exporters is the task of regional authorities who feel those companies, we know their potential, and on our part we have to do anything in our power, within our power, to convert this into a high-quality growth. Thank you for your attention.
See, you have been so shy trying to advertising for your companies. But Ms. Orlova, why don't you actually do mention some of your best success stories in the region, right? Those who actually are major exporters. So if your colleague from Tula has been shy, maybe ladies come first, says the governor of Tula. Yes, but well, so maybe we do come first, but we work together with the region of Tula. So the next time we see each other here, I think we'll be able to brag on some joint ventures. So, anyways, I'm so happy that we're talking about export, and Dmitry is smiling quite rightfully, because this is very important. Our regions should be major exporters. It is not very much in vogue now to keep asking for federal money. Instead, why don't we generate revenue so that we can substitute imports? Let me give you an example related to my Vladimir Oblast. 40% is exported. Last month, we had a German company that commissioned another big workshop in one of our plants, where scores of drugs are produced, including 24 drugs that treat cancer. Also, we are just about to commission a new industrial cluster. When Mr. Putin was prime minister, Mr. Mantra was not around, but he was part of our corporation anyway. So they developed a program aimed at supporting pharmaceutical industry in Russia and my region, as I mentioned. So we just signed an agreement, 1.5 billion worth of contract with China. We produce a lot of drugs, like I said, for a number of world pharmaceutical companies. Next year, we're going to run a international forum about pharmaceuticals in one of our region, one of our districts within my region, and nobody could have thought about this just recently. So most part of our products are exported. Moving on to the machine and tool building. Ministers aware of our plant, and also we produce also the Armata tank. And 90% of all the products are exported. And just I talked to one of my colleagues here, and last night a colleague of mine called me and informed me that he's being invited to go to Japan to make a presentation about the tools we produce, the tools and machinery. And we're talking about 7th and 8th generation tools that we produce. And like I was in China 6 months ago, Segway actually we also produce Segways, which is much cheaper than the ones produced by China. Same goes for motorcycles, electrically driven motorcycles as well. And we're talking about innovative issues. For the last years, only 3.5 jobs have been created in the innovation sector, as a matter of fact. Not just jobs, but jobs within this sector. Grush Hrustalny is a famous town that we have, and like some time ago, it was a troublemaker. When I was appointed governor, I kept harassing our minister, invited him to Grush Hrustalny, but then so he succumbed to this temptation and actually did come to visit, and he was impressed. There was this company, Gusar, right, that commissioned a plant that is not exports its products to the Shell company. So let me take the opportunity to invite you all to the opening ceremony. We are going to commission another plant within this industrial cluster, and our colleagues have been approaching us with a number of proposals. Oftentimes we lack understanding what kind of inter-regional cooperation is going on. Dmitry, you know what? You're kind of a newcomer here, so I would like for you to join in. And moving on to agriculture. Agriculture is not just what we produce is ice cream and dairy products and meat products. No, also we produce also cheese. A lot of cheese that is, we have in our cheese. The cheese we produce is up to the world standards. The Swiss are jealous of the cheese we produce. Also, we have just started producing waste management tools, waste management equipment. So far, we have been importing them from Italy. Now we are going to produce them also within Russia, and there's a lot of demand on this. We're talking about 361 enterprises that export their products, comparing to what we had 2 years ago. The growth comes to 14.3%. As a matter of fact, this is something that was decided upon by experts and specialists. And again, such investment and economic forums that we're having today have been instrumental in promoting our projects. Not that we had to dictate will to our diplomacy, right? But what we do in the economic side of the house. So it's something that actually fills us with pride, and all the regions display a lot of interest because they understand that it's all about export, and export is our future. We're moving on to China, to India, Southeast Asia. We're changing. We have been forced, actually, in light of the sanctions imposed on Russia, we have been forced to change gear a little bit and find more new markets, and we have succeeded in doing so. And in conclusion, let me tell you that today's talk is very important. Let me take the opportunity to express my gratitude to all of the investors present here. By the way, Dima, there have been no decline in investments in the region. On the contrary, we have been witnessing some growth. Last week, an Italian company came to us, and they're building this plant for chips. And next month, Volvo Bus will be commissioned again. Those are trucks that use gas as their fuel, right? So what happens is that this is a vertically integrated company that is 100% located within our region, so ranging from raw materials to the finished products. So my expectations have been exceeded in terms of our cooperation with the railroad of Russia, and so those all filters are produced within Russia, within my region, as a matter of fact. And Ovosai plant was on the verge of bankruptcy 3 years ago. Now they are prospering, and they produce new rails, and they use seventh generation tools to produce those rails. I was there just last week and inspected their workshops. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's important for us to be wise in the way we structure our cooperation so that we can capitalize on those core competencies without duplicating each other's efforts, right? By outlining some sort of roadmap of this inter-regional cooperation. And we have a lot to fall back up on, and there's a good groundwork laid by our cooperation. Not that we're talking about, hey, we lack investments or that we've been invited. No, on the contrary. Only 3 interagency commissions are going to take place in my region in November. And tourism, another issue. Don't forget about that, million. So we've had 1 million tourists more last year as compared to the previous year. We just organized. What did we do for this? We developed a culinary map of my region. We organized a series of honey festivals, meadow, actually. This is kind of a drink made of honey festivals. And speaking about mushrooms, for example, right? So my region used to be the #1 region that produced mushrooms all over the Tsarist Russia, like 100 years ago. Now we want to gain that glory, and this is another way for us to develop our export potential, right? Thank you very much. As the moderator, this is a very good example of how what needs to be done to advertise the export potential of a certain region, right? And Ms. Orlova did a very good job. Moving on to Ms. Kushenikov from the Oblast of Vologda, for him to join in. And right, we know what is bad, but what is good. So it's some good news. But before I brief you, let me give you. But does anybody know about regional brands of my regional butter? Yes, indeed, #1 brand that we have. So let me throw at you some statistics. So regional brands, right? They're recognizable all over the world. There are not that many, as a matter of fact, right? But we have a number of, like butter, you mentioned correctly, plus lace, our linen, right? Those are the 3 major brands. But this is not what I'm going to talk about. Our region has been traditionally export-oriented in terms of the amount of export. We are now 29 in the region, $4.5 billion worth of export. Is registered, and up to 95% of steel is produced in our region. We need to diversify not only our domestic economies but also our export capabilities. And for the last couple of years, we have been changing gears and trying to focus on agriculture, wood, logging, and we're number 3 in the production of wood and construction materials for housing. Every third tractor used in Russia is produced in my region. And in addition to that, we already have become major exporters of agricultural products, such including butter, linen, and lace. And there's a huge demand for this. A couple of years ago, we launched a line of products which is referred to as the True Vologda product, is the name of this brand. It is sold in 50 regions within Russia and 25 countries of near, abroad, and all over the world. We have been supportive of our exporters, thus bringing our exports growth rate by to 10%, and we have reduced imports coming from other regions by 30%. This fits into this concept of food patriotism, right? All this is sold under the umbrella of the brand Vologda product, and we ran a contest amongst the regions last year, and our brand topped the list. Thus, we believe that such an approach can become a driver in booming our in bringing our economy to a boom, and so that we can also rely on support on the part of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Thank you very much. The moderator goes. In fact, Russia is rich in regions that are part already of world economy. Historically speaking, it has happened so that the region of Leningrad and St. Petersburg, for the last 3 years, centuries as a matter of fact, have been part of world economy. At the same time, St. Petersburg and the region around it have become one of the pillars of Russian economy, while still developing their relations with Nordic neighbors and reaching out to Spain. So why don't we ask Ms. Dozienko, who represents the region of Leningrad, as a matter of fact, that has always been very sexy, appealing, attracting from the point of view of investors. So there's no need actually to talk about how to develop your export potential. But still, are there any weaknesses that you would like to share with us? Thank you for giving me the floor. Yes, indeed. We are an export-oriented region, and our exports are come to the double of what we import, and this has been the case for many decades right now. I like the concept of one-stop shop. However, we have not yet reached that success, and but still at the same time, we believe that chemistry, fertilizers, and petrochemicals are major items of our export, and our federal colleagues have mentioned the need for us to emphasize on pricing so that we can become competitive. This is our competitive edge, and as we see petrochemicals, the prices on petrochemicals have been going down, so that why we cooperate with Surgutneftegas, Neftekhim, and other enterprises to support the investors. We're talking about multilateral processing of oil. We're talking about the production of ammonia based on sulfate and new technologies whereby we support not only agreements but also we grant tax exemptions and preferences to such industries well supported by the respective ministry of the Russian Federation. Another way of dealing with this is to support our major exporters. Sometimes foreign investors would come to Russia for the purposes of selling their products within Russia. And now what we're dealing with is a unique situation where such foreign investors, thanks to ruble devaluation, have being able to take advantage of this so that they can have the products made in Russia at advantageous prices, so the prime cost, so that they can sell it back to Finland and China, for example, like tires. And the same goes for Upanor, that first came to us to produce locking fixtures. Now they produce and export these products. Siemens gas turbines recently came to Russia in order to produce such turbines for Russia only, but now they convert to export. And also some other thing, Philip Morris started producing cigarettes within Russia for domestic consumption, but then they're now increasing this their output to export abroad. And what happens is that recently they closed one industry in Italy. Instead, they added a new plant here in Russia. New exporters, a new generation of exporters are emerging as well, and we are keeping a close eye on the market dynamics. And recently, we seized initiative on from Nordic countries to produce certain construction elements, materials to produce furniture for our homes. As a matter of fact, thanks again to this unique situation of the market, and we commissioned just a unique plant in Priozersk, and we are beginning to export our furniture to Nordic countries. And then the IKEA corporation sells our furniture all over the world. Another line of business is the expansion of our markets, and we hope to be supported by our federal agencies so that we can reach out to North Africa, for example, and in terms of fertilizers and petrochemicals, automobiles and machines and wood. The same goes for pulp and paper industry. And instead of buying pulp and paper, now we ourselves produce, remember the Sviatogorsky plant where paper and pulp is produced. Now our paper has a prime cost much lower, that enables us to export this and get this competitive advantage. So we're expanding into new markets, we're reaching out to new markets, and also at the same time we need support on the part of federal agencies to keep a presence in traditional markets. Sometimes nobody's happy that we try to get a niche much larger than has been allotted to us, but still we do hope that the system of moving to the concept of one-stop shop will enable us to somehow strengthen our positions so that we can keep our presence in traditional markets while competition is still high. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, accordingly, for Mr. Anton Alikhanov, acting head of the government of Kaliningrad region, there's no need in entering the European market because he's already there. Well, thank you for the floor, and we have a double agenda here today. We're talking about the export potential and the support of middle and small business, and We are on place 2 among Russia's regions, being only second to Moscow. We are so we have 1.7 billion rubles for small businesses trade. We have 10.5 billion dollars, and 2.6 of them is export. We have Sodružstvo company, which is the biggest factory in Europe, which processes soya, and Miratorg, which processed 1.5 tons last year. In Germany, Morocco, and North African markets are very promising for us, and the potential agreements on trade with Egypt and other countries of North Africa will be quite interesting for us. Well, if I talk about the niche of our specialization, it's not only agricultural processing. We have wonderful companies as Optimkram, Balkram, which supply about 160 cranes to other countries, including such countries as such huge economies as China. I would like to thank the Ministry of Industry and the Russian Export Center, especially Rosexim Bank, which rendered its support to us and which made it possible for us to manufacture cranes. And this June we supplied cranes to Poland and Lithuania. At one of the cargo terminals, there are cranes which were manufactured in Kaliningrad. There are wonderful opportunities for transferring manufacturing sites from Europe to Kaliningrad. We have such a company as Grammar, which process metals, all the raw metal is produced there, and the devaluation created conditions for the fact that the Germans find it more beneficial to manufacture some things in our country and then assemble them in Germany. We've had talks with the Kronosh Pump company, and about 80% of the products that they're going to manufacture in our country, they will export. The company A, a very famous company, American and French company, will build a factory in the Kaliningrad region. And it has already been mentioned that a certain fund will be created for the industry, support of the industry, and will have lower stakes. We're considering those options for the factories that are created with an emphasis for the export potential. If we talk about geography, we may be ambitious in saying this, but we have the only seaport which never freezes in the Baltic. We have 2 formats of railways, and our industrial park in Chernyakhovsky will become a point where we could export by means of which we could export goods to Europe. We work with the RADS actively. The first office of RADS in the regions was created in the Kaliningrad regions. That's why there is one suggestion. The Balkan, which we have already mentioned, does supply 9 out of every 10 cranes that are installed in atomic rooms, and we are implementing a product in Anakalam in India, and the contract is held in Rosatom, and our company is supplying a crane for the station. It doesn't hold an export contract. It can't use the contract of Roseximbank, and I would like Reds to work with that. Some subcontract can take place inside those big contracts. And our company is using the services of that bank. And those steps would be appropriate, therefore. And I would like to thank the colleagues from the Ministry of Economy, from the Ministry of Industry, from the Eurasian Commission. The work of enlightenment is very important. And we don't realize the potential which is which lurks in the regions, and we in Kaliningrad would like to keep diversifying the region by means of small and medium businesses in the world and in Europe. Thank you. Thank you very much. Lots of thanks. Lots of words of thanks have eaten about 15 of our time, and 15% more of time which we lack is accounted for by the fact that we have started late. So I will make up for that. And the representative of the Russian Federation in the Kingdom of Netherlands wanted to speak about how the Russian exporters can be presented there. You can ask him. I would be interested in listening to the experience of Tatarstan, because the Republic of Tatarstan is a wonderful territory which is different from the whole of Russia and which is quite competitive among Russian regions. And I would also like to listen to Pavel Skurikin, head of the National Union for Corn and Cereal Manufacturers, and they will keep developing the export of cereals and corn. If you're interested in how this is organized, you can ask them a question. I would also like to ask Mikhail Yevchuk, head of AgroSpector, on how the Russian system of export support can be used. And this would be also an interesting point. I would talk to Ilya Polyakov, head of the Rosbank, on which private products private banks to create to support the businesses. It's not only about private sector. Finally, I would like to give the floor to Leonid Polyakov. Yeah. Can you make a summary of what I've said, please? Could you please do this? Good afternoon. That's an unexpected suggestion to sum up today's session. First of all, it's been very interesting to listen to the heads of Russia's regions on their understanding of the role of export, supporting the export. And there's nothing I could add here. I would just put several accents here. We mentioned some priority products on export. In the summer of 2016, the President of the Russian Federation created a council for priority projects, and international cooperation and export was one of these projects. And at different platforms, we have been discussing those projects and those suggestions. And literally, over these past weeks, we have started to find several priorities, breakthrough priorities. And Mr. Manturov has mentioned them: 4 industries plus agriculture. If the regions of Russia would be able to determine the particular industries, particular enterprises, and if they could concentrate financial, HR, human resources in support of different industries and enterprises, if they could set the tasks for the year for particular products, it would be a very appropriate approach. And I would say a few words. I would like us to be prisoners of the situation, and some colleagues suggested that we have certain budgetary limitations, and this would be an inertial, such an inertial development path. We should have sufficient resources for that, and we should set the tasks, and based on the tasks, we should focus on all our efforts, on all of our resources on the tasks to make for a breakthrough improvement in a certain sphere, and not be hostages to the situation. Thanks a lot. It's been a very fruitful discussion. Thank you. Please don't feel shy to advertise what you're doing. This is what we always feel. We're always feeling shy to do, and please don't feel shy to boast. And I will advertise the Russian Expert Center. It's a very important structure, and it needs to be advertised. Thank you.